And gambling can be so strong. I mean, really, if you look at some of the brain scans, it looks almost similar to cocaine. Wow. So the high you get from gambling is almost similar to cocaine, which is not just a mild substance, it's a pretty severe substance.
Welcome to Recovery TV Live. Today we are going to talk about gambling addiction. And I have a very special guest with me today.
That fantasy of who you want to be and just being in that fantasy world of winning and imagining those winnings all the time, right. That's when you're getting the high. So you're already chasing the high that you're already feeling, just imagining and being in that false reality.
And so let me tell you about our guest we have today. His name is Travis Ernst. He's a clinical director of a local organization in town called A Chance to Change. And so Travis has a lot of knowledge in gambling, the gambling addiction field. He's done many presentations around gambling issues, family interventions, and ethics. Travis, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, what is gambling addiction? So people might assume they know, some people might know, but go ahead and tell us from a clinical perspective, what is it?
Yeah, gambling is really unique because it's really the only one, and if you look in the DSM-5, which is how we diagnose things, gambling is the only one that got moved right up next to all the other addictions. So we have drug and alcohol addictions and gambling. It's the only one kind of recognized that there's that much research and there's that much evidence for what gambling does to the brain and how it affects people. Right. And so when we look at gambling, one of the easiest ways to know, because a lot of people ask, how do I know if I'm a gambler, or how do I know if I have a problem with gambling addiction? Because a lot of people gambling. I mean, a lot of people just do it for fun, and it's one of those things you can do for fun, just like alcohol and just like drinking. Most people can do it socially. Most people can have fun with gambling, but there are people that have problems, and the easiest way is the lie-bet scale. Do you lie about your gambling, and do you bet more to get the same effects with your gambling? And those two are kind of the easy basic screening that we do. There's some other things that you can ask for and you can kind of go into, but family issues are a huge part of gambling. And so if anybody's bringing gambling to your attention and saying that you might have a problem, you might have a problem. Yeah. And gambling can be so strong. I mean, really, if you look at some of the brain scans, it looks almost similar to cocaine. Wow. So the high you get from gambling is almost similar to cocaine, which is not just a mild substance, it's a pretty severe substance that people are taking.
What makes gambling addiction different from like a substance addiction? Yeah. What sets it apart?
Well, the substance, you know that you're taking a substance and it's changing the way you feel. With gambling, it's almost even before you actually gamble that you're having that high. So that fantasy of winning, that fantasy of what you're going to do with the money, right? It's not just winning the money, but it's imagining who you're going to be and who you could be. Oh, I'm going to donate all this money to church and to charity, and I'm going to take these people out. I'm going to pay off these people's debts. And so, like, in this fantasy world, this person that you could be is so ingrained, and you get such a high from that, even feeling that, and then you chase it with gambling, trying to be that person, trying to do those things. And then with gambling, there's always, I mean, if we go back to learning psychology, right? You don't just put in your money and you lose. I mean, you would never get an addiction if you just lost all the time. So you put in some money and you win some. And then you put in more money and you'll win some, but you never really win back what you put in. The casinos usually pretty standardly take out a percentage of every dollar that you put in. But since you have intermittent reinforcements with winning, you remember the wins, you remember those good things, you remember those times that you get that.
So no matter how much you're losing, when you win, you're getting reinforced, you're getting dopamine kick. And,
and almost all gambling addictions have a big win. It almost always starts off and kicks off with a big win. So once that's in there, you're like hooked.
One thing that you mentioned, one thing that we talk about here at our place, we'll say that mental health increases as we pursue reality at all costs, which is actually a quote from M. Scott Peck. And so what I was wanting to know is is there a fantasy element to this? I mean, do you have to keep people they're doing treatment for this in reality?
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of that's based on sticking with reality. That fantasy of who you want to be and just being in that fantasy world of winning and imagining those winnings all the time.
Right.
That's when you're getting the high. So you're already chasing that high that you're already feeling, just imagining and being in that false reality. When instead you're losing, you're about to lose your house, your wife's about to leave you because of your gambling. And that kind of ties in, and I know I mentioned it to you before, but the unique thing about gambling is that it's the only addiction that we feel like it's going to also solve our problems.
Right.
You can talk with an alcoholic, you can talk with a drug addict, but they know that they're avoiding or that they're just chasing something that's not there anymore, right? But a gambler really feels like, if I win big, if I do that next jackpot, if I win enough, my wife's going to be okay, my debts will be paid, I can pay off the stuff I borrowed from work, and then everything will be all right, and I can be that person that I want to be. So the actual addiction itself is going to solve all my problems.
Right. That is a very unique element to the specifics to the fantasy of that. I think that I'm going to hit one win and all my problems. That really stuck out to me. All my problems will be solved.
All of it will go away. They all believe that.
Yeah.
Seriously, to the depths of their soul, they believe that gambling will also fix it.
Right.
They know that it created it, but they also know that it can fix it.
Yeah.
And it's true too. Like you can't deny that. Like not that all their problems are going to go away, but a lot of those big problems may go away if they've hit it big.
Right.
But the chance of that happening is really low.
Sure.
It's not very probable.
Right. Exactly.
And what's more likely, they're going to lose more of their money. They're going to get more in debt. They're going to lose and create more problems for themselves.
So one of the things in working with addicts, in my experience of working with addicts, we talk about, like, you know, some of the biggest lies addicts tell are the ones they tell themselves, and so that obviously would be one of the lies, right? Well, what are some of the other lies addicts, gambling addicts or addicts in general, tell themselves?
Yeah, well, of course they say that gambling's not a real addiction. I'm just doing this because it's fun. I'm just doing this because it passes time. Or you get the gambler that says, well, I'm really good at it because I know I win. And so I'm really winning most of the time that I go. And so we hear that a lot, that they win. I mean, and I know it's not as big now, but there were a while there where professional gamblers were on TV all the time. You saw poker players.
Andy Duke.
And so, and it kind of glorified that professional gambler.
Right.
And now that we have casinos everywhere in Oklahoma, like, you can go in and try to be that person and try to be that professional gambler, which instead, a lot of even professional gamblers, and I use that kind of with quotes, is a person that gambles a lot, but they may be more gambling addicted than they are than a professional gambler.
Right.
So there's always a probability, no matter what strategy you're using. It's not foolproof. There's no foolproof way to gamble. Right? It's not called gambling if it's foolproof.
You're right. And my assumption is, despite whether you're addicted to it or not, or whether you're a professional or you're not, because of that factor that one of us will win and one of us will lose, and not just lose, one of us will lose everything, right? That's on the table, at least. Well, that's a nice chemical concoction going up in the brain, I imagine, because of that factor. And
there's no like bottom for gamblers, right? If I'm an alcoholic, there's only so much I can drink in one day, like physically allowed, right? And there's only so much drugs I can take, but there's not a limit to how much money I can lose. There's only there's only an amount of how much money I can have access to gamble. Right. But the amount of money that I can actually lose, I mean, I've talked with gamblers in my groups before, and they're like, yeah, I've lost 2 cars worth in 5 seconds.
Wow.
And it's just gone. And you give an alcoholic $2,000, they're gonna drink for maybe a month, maybe a couple months, but you give $2,000 to a gambler, it could be gone in 30 seconds, it could be gone in 1 day, but it's going to be gone before they leave the casino.
Wow, yeah.
I have people that every time they got their paycheck, it would be gone.
Right.
Like, literally, they could not make it home with money when they got their paycheck.
Wow.
Their entire paycheck would be gone. And they didn't gamble every day because they didn't have money.
Right.
So is it a problem if I only gamble once every 2 weeks?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
If you bet away everything.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I guess you know it's probably too. I imagine like when you have unlimited resources, it's probably a lot. I'm assuming anyways, it's a lot harder for that person to identify that they have a problem because you know they have unlimited resources, so I can just spend and spend.
Or if there's people bailing them out, right? That's something that we talk about with gambling. When you get a bailout because you went in debt, it's not part of your recovery. Your recovery is working through your losses and your consequences. And it's not just getting bailed out because then I have no consequences anymore. But gambling, because of that there's no ceiling there for the consequences from gambling and what you can bet. The other thing that's significant, if you work with any gamblers or if you know a person suffering with gambling addiction, is that gambling with all the addictions is the highest suicide rate out of all the addictions.
Wow, see, I didn't know that.
I've done a lot of different groups and a lot of addiction counseling. I've never seen something that powerful where the suicide thoughts and suicide attempts is so high.
Right. Well, with a lot of process addictions like sex addiction, gambling addiction, even food addiction, I think sometimes we take it as tongue in cheek and not realizing how serious of a problem we're dealing with. I mean, you're talking about a problem that has an addiction that has the highest suicide rate. That when you said that, man, that really took me back. That blew my mind. You know, I mean, we're talking about life and death. Yeah. For a lot of people that's dealing with this stuff, when they enter into treatment, they just aren't like going, you know, clean slate it. I don't ever like with alcoholic. I can go. I don't ever have to touch alcohol again. But the gambling addict knows that they got to handle money. Right. If you're going to be a functioning person in this
that's a big thing
society,
with process addictions are like that, right? It's not like you can never have sex again or will never think about sex, right? Or you'll never not have money. Because gambling, even though we see it as casinos, we see it as that stuff, the addiction's the money, right? What do I imagine winning? What is my fantasy of? It's not of the bells of whistles. It's the winning money. And it's being able to do things with that money. And so a lot of the impulsivity, a lot of the viewpoints just around money and what happens, even paying off the debt. I have a lot of gamblers that really go into this manic phase kind of in their recovery where they're like, I got to pay off everything right away. Because it's just like they want a windfall. They just want it paid off. They want that instant gratifications, just like they had with gambling. And to really get in a program and just work and be okay with what's coming in and how you're spending it, instead of just being impulsive with your spending. Even good things like paying off debt, it's just really, really tough, and they got to learn how to do that.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because now that we've established that gambling is a real problem when we're talking about, for a lot of people, life or death types of situations, and for other people that aren't having those thoughts, we're talking about losing homes and losing cars. And
a lot of gamblers, and a lot that we've seen and a lot that are out there, embezzling is a huge part of it. Because they don't see it as embezzling. They see it as, I'm borrowing from my work. So I can win and pay it back. Because I'm going to win.
Exactly. So now that we've established that, it's a big problem, and it's happening everywhere. What are the resources for it? So the first place I always tell gamblers to go to in our state for Oklahoma is the Oklahoma Problem Gambling Association. And so they can look that up online. Wiley Harwell does a great job putting out newsletters, information, resources, what are some screening tools that I can use. So that's just a great resource that's out there. And if you're not sure, if you're trying to decide, do I have an issue or does a family member have an issue, come in and talk to someone, talk about it, be assessed, and figure it out. And I think that's just a great way so you feel comfortable. It's not, I mean, we all go online to take every quiz that's out there or look up every diagnosis, medical or otherwise. But sometimes you still don't know. There's that gut stomach thing that says, is this true or is this not? And so
if you want, seek a professional. Call us up if you want, and if we can't help you, we'll hook you up with someone that can. And get that assessment so you really know. There's also the National Council on Problem Gambling, which our Oklahoma chapters is associated with, and they have some resources that they're divided between every state, and so you can see some therapists and get hooked up with resources and get all that through the National Council as well.
Right. So please go check that out, just because there are resources available, and there's likely resources available where you are. So, and if you can't find those, one thing I say all the time on these episodes is that as therapists, we tend to like to help people. So even if we can't, even if you're not coming to our facility or to where we are, we want you to find the help that you need.
And don't wait till your family member's okay. It's like any addiction, right? So if you feel like a family member is dealing with it and they won't come in, you come in. And start getting boundaries, start getting healthy relationships, start knowing about the addiction, and you can start changing your family for the better, even without the person with the problem coming in themselves.
Right.
And with gambling, we do that a lot. I know you guys do it with sex addiction as well, but pulling in the entire family, or especially the couple, is going to be so important.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, we're talking about money, right?
Oh, yeah.
And since you always have access to money, we usually have to limit the gambler's access to money at the beginning. And so even though that the spouse may have a lot of wounds around what the gambling has done, and then they're like, what, now you want me to take care of all the money as well? I mean, it's a tough situation. But we do that, and in some severe cases, we do like gas cards only, so you can go get gas, or if you need like a coffee, or if you stop by McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or something, have those gift cards, but don't have cash, don't have access to the credit cards. Have limit to the bank accounts where you can't withdraw certain amounts. Don't do payday loans. There's certain things that we have to just talk through and really outline out, so there's no, I always call them escape hatches, right? So you can't be like, well, we're going to take your cash away, but not your credit card. And then they're like, oh, I need to go gambling, I can just use my credit card. So you got to take away all those escape routes, all those access to money, at least for a while. It's not going to be forever. But at the beginning, we're talking about something as seriously as like cocaine in the brain, right? For this process addiction.
I think people need to recognize that.
And so how severe that is when someone's needing a fix, whenever someone's needing that gambling. And gamblers go through a withdrawal too. They get irritable, they get anxious, they almost Jones going back to the casino and thinking about it. So really setting that up really helps the gamblers.
Well, Travis, thank you for being here and answering all these questions. Again, please check out A Chance for Change website. Go like them on Facebook. And that brings us to the Fast 5 round.
All right, bring it on.
All right, so here we go. We're going to do the Fast 5, 5 questions that we ask our guests. Sometimes we switch one or two of them up, but we basically keep them the same. So question number 1 is, name someone, dead or alive, that you don't know, that you would like to have dinner with, and why?
Dead or alive that I don't know, like personally?
Yeah, you've never met them. You've never met them, but they could be dead or alive that you would have liked to have dinner with.
So, of course, religiously, I would say Jesus, but I would say who would be fun to have dinner with would be Einstein, just because if I spoke German too, probably would help. But he would just be really interesting to chat with.
Is there any particular conversation you want to have with him? Or?
No, I think just seeing kind of how his mind works, somebody that has been so influential into some of the discoveries and
I don't know, man,
society.
That really speaks to your confidence, man. I'd be really nervous having I don't know if I would feel like I could keep up with him,
Yeah. Well, it depends if you spoke German too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. All right, so next question is, what word is fun for you to say?
What word is fun for me to say? There's a lot of words that are fun to say, but I would say off the cuff, onomatopoeia is always a good one.
I think Matt, who was on here last week, said the exact same thing.
See?
Onomatopoeia.
Look at that.
Which we can't remember. I can't remember. What does it mean?
It means like a word that's like as a sound.
It sounds like boom.
Yeah.
Was on. Okay.
Or pow or pa.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
Hopefully I'm saying that right.
Yeah. If you got the definition wrong, you cannot have a conversation with Ernst.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you that right now.
Well, that's all right. He wasn't literature. He was more the hard sciences.
Yeah. He probably wouldn't know what onomatopoeia is. Yeah. All right. What's the last show you binge watched?
The last show I binge watched was, I think it was just a newer thing on Netflix, but it was The Order. So
I've seen that one.
Yeah, it was a brand new one. So I watch whatever comes out. So it's not
What
old ones
is that
because
one about?
it's like witches and.
Oh, is that the Witches and Vampires one?
No, witches and werewolves actually.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
I've seen that one. Okay,
So
cool.
it was interesting.
So The Order. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Question number 4. What song or band are you currently hooked on?
So what song or band? Yeah, I cycle through those a lot. So I would say right now I'm listening to a little bit more, probably old school. Weezer just dropped 2 new albums, the Black Album and the
Really?
Teal Album.
Okay.
And the Teal Album's all old school covers. And so
Okay.
it's really cool and really fun.
I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring us back to the 90s.
Yeah. What's your favorite podcast to listen to?
I actually haven't listened to a podcast in a while, but the last one I listened to, I don't remember the actual name, but it was talking about the history and meaning of words. And so they were going into slang words last time and what slang. And I think they were
look that up.
Yeah, so it was just really interesting because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I didn't know that word's a slang word. Like,
That word-
then like where it came from and kind of the history of that. So
That would be very interesting.
Yeah.
I like podcasts that give a unique look at certain things. That's why like my favorite's Revisionist History with Malcolm Gladwell because he just picks things up. He just takes a different angle at things. And so I'll have to. We'll have to find. If you ever find that one, you have to email it to me. Well, again, I appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Well, just remember, March is Gambling Awareness Month.
Oh, yeah.
So when
Yeah,
you
we're
guys are
talking
doing
about
your brackets, just remember this
Yeah.
is Gambling Awareness Month.
Yeah.
Think of all the businesses that are promoting gambling right now,
Right.
and just remember that some people might have an issue or problem with gambling. So be aware of that in your workplaces and environments, and just be sensitive and aware of if you're noticing some things for sure.
Appreciate it, Travis.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. And I just want to remind everybody that we will be back here in 3 weeks. We have a really interesting guest, someone else who's really popular in our community in terms of as a psychiatrist, and that's Dr. Jennifer Morris. And we're going to talk about should I consider medication when I'm thinking about my recovery or my treatment in psychotherapy. So we hope everybody will be back to join us for that or check us out on the rebroadcast. Thanks for being here.
We actually started 40 years ago with just a teacher and a school counselor that wanted to get kids help, and they noticed that kids were struggling with some addictions. So they went and got training, came back, worked with not just the kids, but their whole family, changed the entire family system, really got the kids some help. And since then, our agency has just grown, and we have lots of therapists. We do lots of things all around the state now. And we just love kind of where we've grown and what we're doing, and we still love mental health, addiction work, and we still love working with the family as well.
Right. So make sure you go over to their Facebook page and like that channel, and you can follow some of the things that they're doing there. And one of the things that is unique, or at least that has stood out to me over the years, is that for me, your community, your organization or the organization you work for, is like to me the go-to place for gambling addiction treatment.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that. So I feel like we do an amazing work with gambling. We actually try to train up most of our therapists to be gambling trained. So that's, they all at least get an extra 30 hours of gambling specific training to really know and understand gambling before they work with gamblers and their families. And so it's always been a really important thing for us. We host a lot of the trainings for gambling when they come in, usually once a year for those 30-hour trainings with the Oklahoma Problem Gambling Association. So we love having that training and doing workshops and just really helping them. We were one of the first agencies in the metro to be a agency that helped gamblers, and we love that history with us, and it's still something that we love to do, work with.